Welcome to Rails, Ales, and Old Towns. One look at the name of this show will tell you that I'm a pretty big fan of exploring Europe by rail. So it should come as no surprise then that I'm always on the lookout for some inspiration on the subject. And that's where the book Crowded Platforms and Window Seats by Judy Yorke comes in. After I read this tale of one family's adventure to some of Europe's buzziest big cities and coolest small towns, I was ready to follow in their tracks across the continent. I mean, I'm always ready to do that, but you know what I mean. Well, Judy is my guest on the show today, and we have lots of fun reliving her and her family's big trip, and just generally waxing poetic about the highs, and a few of the lows, of riding the rails around Europe. Be warned though, it might just have you planning your own trip. All right, let's hop aboard.
What is the gap between the train and the platform?
All right, let's welcome to Rails, Ales, and Old Towns, Judy Yorke, the author of Crowded Platforms and Window Seats and a fellow European rail travel lover.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm always really happy to talk at great length about Interrail and European rail travel in general. So, yeah.
We'll put you to the test. We'll see if that was all talk or if you're up for it. First off, before we even get going, just a disclaimer to everyone who's listening from around the world. Again, it's come up a couple times on the podcast before, but Interrail equals Eurail. Eurail equals Interrail. They're completely interchangeable because obviously there's a lot of listeners from outside of Europe. In Europe, it's called Interrail. Outside of Europe, it's Eurail, but it's 99.9% same product. So I'll probably say Eurail. You'll say Interrail, but it's tomato.
We're talking about the same thing, yeah.
First and foremost, I want to say thanks. You know, it was a cold January night. Traveling around Europe seemed a long ways away. And I picked up your book and it brought me right back to all the highs, all the lows, and of summer travel in Europe. Oh, yeah. So I want to say thank you for that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I did want to reflect what Interrail is kind of really like to do, because there's so many sort of instruction booklets, you know, about how to do it. But I really wanted to talk about the experience of what it is like in the 2020s. I think particularly as I'd done it, like a lot of people had sort of in my 20s, which was a long time ago, in the late 80s and early 90s, I'd Interrailed then, and things have changed so much. So I kind of just really wanted to talk about how things were like now, because and also just make clear that you can do it now, because I think a lot of people my age aren't really aware of Interrail as an option.
I hadn't actually done it till I was about 30.
Yeah.
And then I've been just trying to do it every few years ever since.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it is surprising to me, that somehow you've either fallen in that world of knowing about it, or as big of a thing as it is, some people are like, never heard of it, don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, or some people kind of still think it's for the under 26s, because when I did it, first of all, it was a youth pass. And I kind of think, so I did it a couple of times, and then I kind of think I just put it out of my mind, because that was something I'd done years ago, was only available for young people. And it never really occurred to me to revisit it until I kind of realized that you could.
So how did you and your family come to this decision?
Well, it all sort of started in lockdown. So we, like most people, got stuck in the country for a couple of years, 2020 and 2021, and had to cancel sort of a planned holiday for 2020. Didn't get around to booking anything for 21. And we sort of talked about it, and we realised that in 2023, both of my sons would be doing, one would be doing A-levels and one would be doing GCSEs, which meant they'd have an extra long summer. So it seemed a really good time to do a big and memorable family trip at that time. We'd have longer. It might be the last trip we'd do with the kids, turned out not to be. It seemed a good time to kind of mark the end of an era, really, with both boys being at school and so on. So we thought, let's have an adventure. And we've got 2 years to plan it and to save up for it. So we thought, let's go to Canada. That was our first thought. Let's do something really, really different. And we kind of held on to that thought for about a year. And then when I started really looking into it, by this time, sort of airfares had shot up. And everything was we realised really that it was to do it properly, because we decided we wanted to do 3 weeks, because we never usually get that time, that it was going to be really, really expensive. So we thought, well, let's think about it again. And then around that time, I think in the summer, someone I knew on Facebook had been posting sort of about their holiday, and they'd been in Italy and they'd got the train down through Italy. And I thought, I would love to do something like that. How fantastic. And it brought back my memories of doing Interrail as a student. Kind of the seed had been planted in my brain, actually, of train travel. And then I looked up and realised that now you can Interrail at any age. There's no restrictions at all. So we started to think about it, and I talked to my husband Adrian, who had also Interrailed obviously before I knew him, and loved it at a similar. So we said, why don't we go Interrailing? And I was a bit nervous about putting the suggestion to my boys, because I thought, we've been talking about kind of exotic, Canada. We toyed with Costa Rica briefly, and I thought, and they hadn't left Europe, and I thought, is this going to be a bit boring relatively to what we've been planning? But they loved the idea of it. And then so this was around December 2022, and we happened to be on a family trip to London. We went to Stanford's. Do you know Stanford's bookshop?
I am very familiar with it. Yeah.
So we went there. Of course, there's all the guides to Europe, and we were looking, and we bought one book, and that was it really. On the train home from London, we were all looking through this book and saying, "Oh, look, this looks good." It was it was a Lonely Planet guide. It was hardback. There were lots of pictures, and we just got really, really enthusiastic. So by the end of the day, the kids were absolutely, let's do that.
For anyone listening, this Stanford's what it is. It's basically exclusively travel bookshop in the center of London.
Absolutely. It's near Covent Garden. And it's just gorgeous. The smell of it as you go in, lovely books. But it's dedicated to travel, and it's just wonderful. So you can get absolutely travel books on absolutely everywhere. So we probably spent an hour or two there looking. We were leafing through a few books, so we better buy one, and just got some ideas from that. And it all started from there, really.
Yeah, it's the kind of place where you can imagine, like, it's been around a while, but you can imagine, like, explorers going in there, getting their maps and their books before they took off for the world, from London.
That's right. It just fires your enthusiasm. So it all started there, and from then on we said, right, okay. What we were very clear from the start was it was going to be a democratic decision. It wasn't going to be mum and dad saying we're going here, here, and here. We all had a say in what we were going to do. So we said, right, everyone, do your research and come up with where you'd like to go. And then we will put a route together from there. So that's what we did. We spent a couple of weeks all researching, coming up with a list of places. And then we made a short list. But it was good because I said from the outstart that I really wanted to go to Budapest. I'd never been to Budapest. So that kind of worked really well because that was sort of our furthest point. So we worked out a way of how to get to Budapest and how to get back a different way.
So everyone listening has a framework. You're based in Brighton, which is about an hour south of London.
That's right. That's right. So to get anywhere, we got the Eurostar. I mean, you can get the ferry, but we got the Eurostar.
What do you think appealed immediately to your sons about it?
I think that it was quite adventurous, that we would be doing loads of different things, because often on a holiday, you go to one place, don't you? Like we used to do beach holidays, and you're stuck in one place. But we had also done some British holidays where we travelled around a bit. Like we'd gone up to York and looked at Whitby and that sort of thing, and we'd been to sort of Wales and Manchester, and they'd really enjoyed that. I think just the ability to do loads of different things and see loads of different places as well appealed. Just lots of different countries. I think we did 6 countries the first time, I think it was. So yeah, we could go hiking one day and be in a capital city the next, and just that variety.
So you all went away with your assignments, come back with the places you want to go.
That's right.
Your big anchor was Budapest.
Yeah.
And so then, but you did mention in the book about there were a few that you originally thought you were going to go, and then they mainly went by the wayside.
Yeah, like I really wanted to go to Croatia. I still want to go to Croatia. We didn't manage that. My husband thought about Bulgaria. I mean, what it became was kind of the art of the possible. Where can we go? The other thing I wanted to do is originally I thought, wouldn't it be lovely to spend a couple of days sort of in the middle lazing on a beach? And then that sort of went out the window because there were too many interesting things to do to sit on the beach for a few days. And we'd done that. So, yeah, it became, what can we do? But we did have a few ground rules that we set. We thought, well, OK, we're not going to go to the places that we might go on holiday in the future. So let's not go to Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, those sorts of countries. And also they tend to be very hot. Obviously, we had to go in July.
You were brave for doing this in July.
We did it in July. So we knew that it would be scorching in some countries. And I knew from experience when we'd been on holiday before and said, let's go somewhere as a day trip. And it was like, 35 degrees. There was a pool there. No one wanted to move. So we thought, well, if we can ideally stay away from the very hot countries. So that was one rule. We also wanted to do a night train because I'd done that as a student before, and we thought that would be a good experience. I don't know, you can go interrailing and say you've been interrailing or Eurailing if you haven't taken the night train, because that's such an experience. So we had a few rules like that. So it was just trying to, within those kind of confines, of trying to work out what we should do.
Take me back to that feeling of the day you're setting off.
I'll tell you, just pure excitement, because we've been planning it. We had it all planned by about February. I mean, it did take quite a while. And it was funny because we thought, right, we're doing this properly. One of the reasons was we didn't want to get planes. I'm not going to pretend we're kind of, complete environmentalists, but we like to do our bit. We've taken a lot of cheap flights over the years, those sorts of things. We thought, right, we're not going to get any flights.
You're paying it back this time.
That absolutely. So then we thought, right, let's try not to get even any cabs. So we actually walked. We live about a mile away from Brighton Station. So we walked. It was a lovely, with our kind of, we had wheelie bags, and we walked to the station, which felt really right to do on a train. We didn't get a cab. It was just really exciting. We got the Eurostar to Brussels, and from there we went immediately to Ghent. So we knew that we didn't have a hugely long trip. Ghent is, I think, about an hour or so from Brussels. So it wasn't a long or difficult trip. So on the first day, so we knew, I just couldn't wait to get there and sort of start, really.
Did you have was there any like melancholy or bittersweet of like, because I felt this over the years too, when you plan a trip and then as it starts, you're almost like, oh, I'm kind of sad to say goodbye to the planning and the anticipation, because the anticipation is gone.
It has. And I always think, when you're a week in, you think, oh, we've only got 2 weeks to go, that kind of thing. So, yeah. And also, I think the problem with interrailing is, I don't know about you, whenever I'm on holiday, last night I always feel a bit sad. I've got to move on. I've loved this place. When you interrail, you go to 10 different places. You get that every night if you like the place. And you very rarely see everything in somewhere you visited. And there's always a bit of regret, oh, we didn't have time to go and see this or go and see that. So definitely.
No, there is definitely an element of that bittersweet. Like, I just got to know you.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah. And
maybe I'm getting ahead of it a little bit, but I did want to touch on how you eloquently mentioned about how, you show up in a city, and like in your case, it was Budapest, and how at first you just feel so clueless of what, you're just like, oh my gosh, like what is going on in this place? How do I even get out of the metro to get to the hotel? But then by the time you leave, it's like, oh yeah, go left, go right, do this, do that. That's the little newsstand, buy a and then these places that you interact with, they become almost like your little friends. They're the window dressing of your trip.
That's right. And it's like when you kind of worked out where you're going, you think, oh, it's a 10-minute walk from the metro. Ugh. And it's all, it just becomes almost like your daily commute. You get so used to it. So, yeah.
And also sometimes I think there can be a bit of I found Eurailing, when you arrive at first, it's kind of, you're like, oh, well, this maybe not be as great as I thought it was going to be on immediate arrival or whatever. As you mentioned in the book, as you arrived in Ghent, and you're finding your hotel and you're worried about these logistics, but then you described that walk in.
Yeah, so in Ghent, we stayed just outside. We stayed near the station because we chose Ghent partly because it's a lovely place, but also for its location, because we spent 4 or 5 days in Belgium, and we meant we could go to Ypres and we could go to Bruges and Brussels. So we chose it for that reason. And so we thought, well, let's be near the station because we could be doing these day trips. So we were slightly out of town, and I was it was a bit of a building site. And then we walked in. It was about a 20-minute walk, and it just got beautiful. And then you end up, have you been to Ghent?
Yes.
Yeah, because by the quayside, this absolutely beautiful quayside in Ghent, lined with kind of restaurants and bars. We sat down and we had a beer, the first beer of the holiday. A Belgian beer is out of this world. So we were sitting there, and we had a bit of a heat wave. I always think Belgian climate's a bit similar to the UK. So July, you usually expect it to be kind of jumper weather. But we were it was this weather was beautiful. Because it was early July, the evenings were really, really long. It didn't get dark till like 10 p.m. So it was just a wonderful feeling, this gorgeous beer, amazing sort of location.
And then you're like, oh, this is why we did this.
Absolutely. because a little bit of me all the while was going, oh, why don't we just go to Mallorca and sit by the pool with cocktails? And this is like, no, this was absolutely the right thing to do. And then there's always the excitement of what you're going to do tomorrow as well, because maybe you're staying and exploring, maybe you're going off. Okay, so we've already booked a tour of Ypres for the next day. So every day there was sort of something new to look forward to.
Obviously, we're not going to get into all the details of the book because we want to buy the book and travel vicariously. But, what was the general, rough itinerary and some of your highlights, the memories that when you sit back now stick with you the most?
The rough itinerary was we went from Belgium via Munich to Salzburg and then Budapest. And then we got the night train from Budapest to Zurich and immediately we went to Lausanne. We didn't stay in Lausanne. Then we went to Baden-Baden in Germany. And from there, we went to the Netherlands and spent a few days sort of Amsterdam, Delft, Utrecht, that kind of thing.
You did kind of a bit of a loop.
We did a loop. So we went to Budapest one way and then came back another way, basically, which I think is ideal. So we saw lots of different places. There were so many highlights. We loved Lausanne in Switzerland. And that was chosen because my two sons are very into running and athletics. And there was the Olympic Museum there. And they said, let's go to the Olympic Museum. And then we did a bit more research. And of course, it's on Lake Geneva. You can go wild swimming in Lake Geneva. So that would be something. We decided to do only a day in Switzerland. We were very scared about how expensive it would be. So we only spent a day. But actually, we did our research and it was fine. But it was just so beautiful. The museum is just on a hill over Lake Geneva. So you look down. I can see why they built it there. You look down and you see the lake and the mountains, and you can go for a dip. And there's I wasn't quite sure what wild swimming in Lake Geneva would be, but there was actually a sort of swimming area with sort of a wooden platform where you could jump off. Of course, the water was just fantastically clear, just idyllic. So that was definitely a highlight. We went for a lovely hike in Baden-Baden, not somewhere that had been on my radar really, but it came up during research. Baden-Baden's in Germany, sort of on the edge of the Black Forest. So we went for a lovely hike there. That was amazing. And just some of the things that we did, we went to sort of thermal baths in Budapest and Baden-Baden, which was just great with huge complexes of hot and cold pools and so on. It's hard to say because we loved the whole trip and enjoyed. We did enjoy everywhere. The only place I'd say that we weren't so keen on was Amsterdam. And I think that was because by the time we went to Amsterdam, we'd seen a lot of kind of canals. We've been to Bruges. And we were staying in Delft and we'd been to Utrecht. And I think we didn't get the wow factor in Amsterdam that we got if maybe we'd gone there first. So we did a day trip there. So we enjoyed it, but we're actually quite glad to get back to sort of pretty quiet, gorgeous Delft in the evening.
That is something that, you definitely is a case study in basing yourself. What you did, you based yourself in some secondary cities and into day trips because when you have a rail pass, I always love that feeling of just strolling into the rail station like, this is free for me, baby. I'm just hopping on the next train.
Yeah, definitely. So, to be honest, the main reason we didn't stay in Amsterdam was when I was looking to book it, it was so expensive to stay in Amsterdam itself. So we thought, well, let's stay just outside. And make a day trip in. So that kind of really worked.
I think maybe, obviously July in Amsterdam, it can be a bit of a bloodbath. When I fell in love with the city, that was in November. And I think a part of it was the fact that it was quieter and it was, then I was able to withstand what happened in July.
Yes.
What were some of those moments where your sons it really was connecting with them?
There were moments like when we were in Salzburg. The kids wanted to go and do one of these summer toboggans in the Alps, and they, which I didn't. So they went off to do that. Well, I went on the Sound of Music tour, which was much more sedate. And just the enthusiasm when we met up again in the evening, and they were just talking about it. And they'd also gone to salt mine while they were there and had to dress up in overalls because it was so cold underground. And just that thing. And I thought it is the perfect mix of they have learned something, but they were just having an absolutely brilliant time. Of that, just the enthusiasm, because they texted me. We were supposed to meet up, but they texted me and said we're going on the toboggan again, so we're going to be late. So don't wait for us. So just that sort of thing. They just had a great time. I think what was good was they took the initiative quite a lot. So they were 16 and 18 when we were there, and just things like they sorted out, right, let's go here for dinner. So we were in Brussels, and we were sort of slightly struggling to find somewhere. My younger son Rory just said, okay, leave it to me. So right this way. And then we ended up at this beautiful like beer garden in the middle of a park with sort of twinkling fairy lights and hot dogs and all that sort of stuff. So I think it was that, just seeing them really enjoy what we're doing and make some decisions for us. I mean, my younger son, again, he decided our Salzburg itinerary on the last day. When we were in Salzburg, we had Salzburg cards, which I'd really recommend if you go there, in that I think it was like €35 for 2 days. It gets you into just about every attraction there. So he sort of got the booklet, said, right, we're going here, 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 and here. And so we did. So I think that kind of thing, we sort of see them take the lead, was really lovely as well.
Those toboggans, that's like up in the Alps, they have like in the summer,
Right.
you get on little wheelie carts and just fly down a hill, like left, right,
Yeah.
left, right.
Absolutely. So they loved that. So, but yeah, I decided that wasn't for me. But they had an absolute blast. They really enjoyed it.
And how was that Sound of Music tour?
It was lovely. It was good fun. It was quite nice to have a bit of me time after so much family time. We went on this coach. Everyone sang songs. I mean, it was lovely. We went to various parts. Like we saw the church where the wedding was filmed and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was lovely.
I imagine on those tours that it's a pretty festive atmosphere. People are very happy to be on that tour.
Absolutely, yeah. It was yes. And I'd only seen the film once or twice, but I surprised myself by knowing most of the words to quite a few of the songs. So yeah, it was good fun. Inspiring that trip was just seeing some absolutely stunning countryside, because we drove quite a way out of actual Salzburg to some of these places, so you did see some more of it as well. So I would recommend doing that.
Do they stop somewhere to let you do like a little bit of a twirl in the field or something?
Yeah, you sort of see quite a few different locations. You saw sort of the house, but it was you stopped there, but it was across a lake, and it's now a hotel, I think, so you couldn't actually go up right close to it. And just stop a couple of times just in gorgeous countryside as well.
Now, you touched on something there about that beer garden woodpecker in Brussels. That you can plan for months, and you can lay things out, but a lot of time, often, it's these little spontaneous things that happen on a whim that end up staying with you and being highlights.
Absolutely. I mean, also, like when we were in Salzburg one evening, we sort of thought, oh, we'd found a restaurant that looked good online, turned up there, and it was all sort of veal, which we don't eat. So it was like we had to hastily replan and ended up having a fantastic meal somewhere else and that kind of thing. And there was also a time in Budapest when our first night we'd wandered in somewhere and had actually our first sort of disappointing meal of the holiday. And I went on one of the. I'm a big fan of the various Interrail forums that you can find on the internet. So I said, does anyone recommend anywhere we could eat in Budapest? Someone said, head to the Jewish Quarter. So I thought, yeah, of course. So we went to the Jewish Quarter. And we found this wonderful restaurant called Muzzletov, that we found out later is a hugely popular place. So it's that kind of thing as well, that thanks to sort of modern technology now, if you are a bit stuck, you can instantly look up or ask for some advice. So we did that a couple of times. Where should we go? We're in this area.
I think you did a really good job too I love how you guys incorporated your hobbies and your passions at home on a trip. You didn't just tick off the things that you're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
You brought yourselves along.
We did. Well, there were two things that we did really. So as I said, we're all quite keen runners, some of us more than others, probably me the least. And we also like football. So we love doing park run. Anyone who doesn't know what park run is, it's a timed 5K run in lots of countries across the world, particularly big in the UK where it started. And it's a 5K run in loads of parks, but also beaches, all sorts of places. There are hundreds in the UK. It's also quite big in Germany. Doesn't exist in Belgium. So there's all sorts. So we decided that let's do some park runs while we're away. So that took quite a lot of extra planning as well, because we had to look at, there's only 4 in Austria. So we had luckily one in Salzburg. So we had to look at the locations where we would be and make sure we were there on Saturday. So we did 2. We did one in Delft and we did one in Salzburg. And that was lovely. And I would really recommend doing them, even if you're not a runner, because you can walk them. It's a brilliant way of seeing a different part of the city and also talking to locals. And everywhere we went, they did do talks in English, sort of explained the route and everything in English. And it was just, that was a real highlight. And the other thing is, we're all into football and we love going to watch football. Before we got to the Netherlands, my son was studying all the pre-season friendly lists and then said, are we in Rotterdam on whatever date? And I said, well, we're actually in Delft, which is really near. So we ended up going to watch a Feyenoord match. And it's just brilliant going to watch football in different countries because it's quite a different experience. And Feyenoord are well known for having very, very passionate fans. This was a pre-season friendly. You'd never have known it from the atmosphere. It was just really vibrant, just real excitement. When they scored, everyone was throwing their beer up in the air. It was
a pre-season game.
Yeah, pre-season game.
I mean, you spent €5 to €8 maybe on a beer. It's one thing if it's in a regular season game where there's points being put in the standings. This is just for fun, and they're throwing beer.
Absolutely. So we absolutely loved that. And we were so impressed with, I was thinking it's going to take hours to get back to Delft. So many people in the stadium. And it's so well organised. You walk to the station, there's trains. As soon as the train's full, whizzes off, takes you away, and another one comes. So we were out there in minutes compared to the UK, where it seems like forever to clear. Like Brighton, where I live, the stadium takes forever. It takes forever to get out of there. But
I have to stand up for Brighton because I was there last September. Me and two of my friends flew over. They flew over, and we were in London, and we went down for the day to watch Brighton play Nottingham Forest. Exciting 2-2 game. And I thought it was pretty efficiently done.
But there was a long queue, I bet.
We showed up at the rail station. I was worried that we weren't going to make it to the game, but we got there within 20 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
I'd say.
What about on the way back, though? That's the thing. It'd take you ages to get out.
I don't remember it being that bad. No, I'll tell you why. We actually lingered in the stadium. We lingered in the stadium for like 45 minutes, having a drink and talking to some of these friendly locals down in Brighton.
Yeah, if you do that, you're fine. If you just want to make a quick exit, then we had to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I noticed there's some good people down in Brighton.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very friendly.
Great pub I want to shout out too. If anyone who's listening to this is ever down in Brighton, and Brighton probably deserves its own episode one day. The Evening Star pub, not too far around the corner from the station. A great pub, Great beer on tap. Evening Star, great place.
Okay, thanks for the tip.
In your own city.
Yeah.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Okay, well, I just wanted to take a second to say thanks for listening to Rails, Ales, and Old Towns. I hope you're enjoying this episode and that it's helping you get excited for your next European adventure. Be sure to check out the link in the episode description, because there you'll find all the information you need if you decide to follow up on the places and topics that came up on the show. Oh yeah, if you are digging the podcast and you had a spare minute, I'd be forever grateful if you were to leave a review or a rating on the platform you're listening on, as those little things do go a long way. And if you really want to get crazy, why not give me a follow on Instagram or Facebook at Rails, Ales, Old Towns. Back to the show.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Let's talk about this night train.
So the night train, as I said before, we were really keen to get a night train because we thought that is the Interrail experience. And I did it a few times when I was a student on Interrail trips. So we thought, right, we're going to have to get one of the logical train to get was from Budapest to Zurich. That all sort of worked with our itinerary. So there's when you go get a night train, you can either sit in the seat all night, didn't appeal. You can get a sleeper, which is quite posh, I think, but only sleeps 3 people and is quite expensive. Or you can do the middle ground, which is a couchette. So a couchette sleeps usually 6 people on sort of bunk beds. So and you can book it out for, if there's 4 of you, you can book the whole thing out. So we booked a 6 sleeper for the 4 of us. And I had visions that it would be like much sleeker than when I'd done it before and more modern and so on. And we got on, and it's this really, really old train. And it was really quite old-fashioned. And I couldn't believe it, but we got to our cabin, I guess you call it a couchette. It was absolutely tiny. And I was looking at it thinking, how could you possibly get 6 people and luggage in here? And we ended up all going to bed really early because there was the gap. It was so small that you couldn't actually walk around. So we just had to lie on our beds.
You know, I'm on record here. I'm obsessed with European rail travel and exploring Europe by rail. So to anyone listening, this is nothing personal against the night trains. I think I enjoy a night train, but there's no doubt that there has been a concerted PR effort of like hyping up these night trains over the last few years.
Yeah.
And my wife and I did the same in 2022. We took a night train from Amsterdam to Vienna.
Okay.
And
yeah.
some of them, yeah, it's not quite the experience, maybe that romantic oriented express experience that even though no one promised you that, you can't help but imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like sleep. It's not the most comfortable bunk bed. You have to make they're not even made up. You get your sheet and a pillow, and that's about it. But it was fun, and I actually slept much better than I thought. I didn't think I'd get any sleep, but I slept quite well. And opened the curtain in the morning. There was this like stereotypical, beautiful Swiss mountain. And it was like, oh, that's why we did it. Breakfast was hilarious. It said breakfast included. So it was going to be a Viennese breakfast. It was awful. And I think it was fruit tea that you got. My husband sort of bleary-eyed sort of poured milk in it before he realised it was fruit tea. So that was undrinkable. And we got given something in white plastic that felt squidgy. And we didn't actually open it because it just looked so revolting. So we arrived in Switzerland hungry. But yeah, it wasn't quite the experience, but I'm glad we did it.
It is remarkable, though, how those lows at the time turn into the stories that you cherish years later.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was fun. But yeah, and not something I think I would do again in a hurry.
Also in the book, you included a bit of your journals from a previous trip in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And it was amazing that you had said the same kind of thing about the couchettes then.
Yeah, well, when we went the first time, when we were sort of 19, 20, we didn't do the kind of book out the whole couchette thing because it was extra money. And obviously then you're trying to do it as cheaply as you can. And I remember there was one place where we had to get on I think we were in Amsterdam. I can't remember where we were, but we had to get on it at 1 o'clock in the morning and sort of get into this tiny couchette with people already asleep. But it was very similar. The only difference was we didn't get woken up in the middle of the night this time with demands for passports like they used to do then when you sort of got to the border.
Yeah, I can remember those days. Yeah. I can remember those days. And it's like you're convinced they would just intimidate you so much that you would just be like, wait, am I smuggling drugs?
Yeah, that's right.
People would come through like, I was like, wait a second, I'm going to jail here. Like, no.
But I don't think the couchette carriage that we were on this time had changed from when it was back then. It was
all right, so let's go back to Budapest. So it was your anchor, it was your A-list, it was your I'm going to die on this hill destination I'm going to.
Yeah.
Did it live up to the hype?
I think initially, no. We were a bit disappointed the first night. We couldn't quite find anywhere good to eat, and it all seemed we couldn't quite find where to get. We decided to do a boat tour, but it really grew on me after that. And we went to the baths, which you have to do when you're in Budapest. So I think we did that on the first day, and that was. I mean, it's something that's quite touristy, but it was fantastic. It was like nothing else I'd ever done. This huge complex of hot, cold, indoor, outdoor baths. So that was fantastic. And then we just wandered around the city. Yeah, it really, really did grow on me. We did a couple of sort of really interesting sort of places to visit. One of the places that, again, I think one of my sons found was a place called Memento Park. Have you been to Budapest, Scott?
I've been to Budapest a couple times, and this Memento Park was on my list a couple times, but somehow it evaded me.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you went.
Yeah, Memento Park is it's just out of the city. You have to get a bus there, and it's where they've dumped the old Soviet statues, and it's in this sort of slightly unkempt place, which to me felt slightly deliberate. It's like, haha, you've ended up here. And it was just fantastic. It's huge statues and really imposing statues of Stalin and so on. So it's an absolutely amazing place, really quiet. I don't think it's on the main tourist track. There weren't many other people there, despite it being sort of prime tourist season. And then sort of videos of the whole of what was going on at the time. So that was a real highlight. And we just love that. I've never seen anywhere like that before or since. So yeah, so I think that was really special. And then we just got to grips with the city. You know, we got the tram ride. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful tram rides in the world. So we did all that sort of thing. We went to, I think that again, having the teenagers with us was great because they sort of found things that we probably wouldn't have done. So after we had intended to go to a couple more of the kind of serious museums, but after the sort of Memento Park, I think we needed a bit of a break. So we ended up in this place called the Illusion Museum, which was just hilarious, just full of optical illusions and that kind of thing. And brilliant staff saying, stand there to get the best photo, where, so it was that kind of thing. So we had a real mixture of experiences, and I ended up really, really enjoying it. And just before we got the train, we had dinner, and we found a local place, which is always the best. Just sort of sitting on the street, just outside, a couple of tiny tables crammed there, having beef stew. And I loved it by the end. But I think it was, it's a big frenetic city. And it just, when we started, it was a bit overwhelming, I think. And we didn't quite know where we were or where to go. But yeah, we as you say earlier, we got the hang of it really quickly. And I did really enjoy it.
Yeah. And there's something about that, like we touched on earlier, that growth is fun, and that growth ends up being the experience that you love so much, that just like, oh yeah, I was overwhelmed and now it's great.
Yeah.
And on the baths, you went to the Grand Cheshire baths, I think.
Something, yeah. But it's the one that you see on the cover of all the tourist guides, with people in there playing chess in the baths. So we went to that one, which I think is the most touristy one, but I think for a good reason, because it's actually huge. And there's 17 pools there, something like, don't quote me, but something like that, indoors and outdoors. And we went round several times. Restaurant there, you can spend the whole day there. We spent quite a few hours. I think you have to go to Budapest and do that.
And how'd you do in the chess matches against the guys?
We didn't play chess. I think we quite fancied doing it, but there were people having long involved chess games. So we didn't even get the photo.
These destinations, like when you look at this trip you took, this is not your typical European trip. You definitely skewed on a little of these second tier places, which I think surely served you well.
Yeah. I mean, I think we did that for a number of reasons. I didn't want it just to be a let's tick off all the capital cities list, because I thought that would be a bit dull. We had been to places, like we had a family trip to Berlin 3 or 4 years earlier, so we had been there. And some of it was sort of circumstance. Like we did plan to go to Amsterdam, but as I say, we changed our mind, and I'm glad we did. And we were originally going to stay, because we got the Eurostar to Brussels, our original plan was let's stay in Brussels and do day trips. But then we sort of thought about it, but let's go. Ghent was much more central for doing that. We wanted to have a mixture. We wanted to be able to relax in places. We didn't want we were away for 3 weeks, which is quite a long time. We didn't want it all to be really, really kind of frenetic and busy. So that's why, like, for instance, why we chose Baden-Baden, because that's got beautiful hikes. We really wanted to do a hike. And as I say, Lausanne we chose because we wanted to see a particular museum, and it just looked a really beautiful place from when we did our research. So yeah, we sort of chose our places with a mixture of let's go there, but also to be sort of pragmatic, because we wanted to do a sort of sensible journey. So it was kind of a case of let's look at the map and see what's a good place. For instance, we did a one night in Munich because it was I think it was about 6 hours from Brussels and a couple of hours from Salzburg. So it was a good place. We only stayed a night in Munich. So it was a good place to kind of break the trip. So we did quite a lot of research like that. Where should we have our one night stop off? Should we stop off in, I think we were debating Cologne, Frankfurt or Munich, because it was en route and it made sense. So it was a mixture of things, of reasons why we did that.
And it was summertime. So, I mean, beer garden at night.
Oh, yeah. That was an absolute highlight. So we had a really bad trip to Munich. We got delayed about 5 hours. We were supposed to arrive at lunchtime. We arrived hours late. And we're all in quite bad moods. And we had a friend who knows Munich quite well. And we said to her, where should we go? So she said, go to this beer garden. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was called, but it was great because it was about a half-hour walk, which was perfect because it meant we could sort of see something of the city en route. And it was just amazing. I mean, the food is amazing. The atmosphere is incredible. Huge places. Everyone's sitting outside, eating schnitzel and chips and, of course, drinking beer. And yeah, we were in a much better mood after that when we got back.
We try our best to not do one night places. Yeah. But sometimes you can really do it right in one night. And it is better than nothing. And especially with rail travel, when you do show up in the center, and you can be in the essence of a city within an hour. Absolutely. It's not ideal to do one night, but sometimes it's inevitable. It's like a layover, but it's a bonus. You got to look at it as a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did with Munich, and we mainly stayed in Munich because it was to break up the journey between Brussels and Salzburg. That would have been really long, and we ended up with less time there than we planned because we had this 4.5 hour delay. But we did feel we saw something of it. And one thing I would say is, if you are somewhere for a really short length of time, do a walking tour, because they're sort of ubiquitous in cities, and you can book often a free walking tour where you just tip the guide at the end. And we did these, like we did Munich and Delft, and this year we went to Strasbourg, and we did one there and in Antwerp. And they are great as an introduction to the city, to see, and then you can get more if you do that sort of on your, if you're on a longer trip, you can do it on your first day to give you some ideas of what to do later on. If you're just doing a one day, you can get a really good, quick sense of the city that way. And the guides are usually we've always found them to be really, really good. So,
I mean, some of these walking tours I've gone on in Europe, they stayed with me, and I remember they were just fun, great experiences. You talk to other other people, and now you have food tours everywhere.
I really recommend walking tours. I love them.
All right, so someone's listening to this and they've got teenagers. We'll stick with teenagers.
Yeah,
young kids. You can't speak to that, obviously, but someone's listening to this. They've got teenagers, and they're toying with that idea of coming over to Europe and spending a couple of weeks on the rails.
Yeah.
What's your pitch of why that's a good idea?
I mean, it was absolutely perfect for us because, well, they could have a big say in it. They could do things that they wanted to do, while we could introduce them to a couple of things that maybe we wanted them to do, like the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. They loved the sheer variety of it. There is sort of built-in downtime when you go on a train, in that you can't always, you've got a 6 hour train journey. I quite look forward to that every time, because we walked, I think about 10 miles on average a day. But there was downtime when they could look at their phones and sort of and do all that kind of thing. But it's just, there's very little chance to get bored on this sort of trip. And if you are bored, we'll go off, you're not in a hotel in the middle of nowhere. Go off and find, we could always go off and find something else to do. So I think it's just a great family holiday from that point of view. But also from the point of view of sort of memory building. Just like we've done family holidays where, you think, gosh, was that Mallorca or was that Greece? The beach sort of merges into one. Whereas this holiday made so many memories of different things. And we made a lovely photo book, we've got pictures on the walls. So it really was a kind of bonding family experience. And kind of when things go wrong, that's bonding, and the kids can help out. And I think that's, we handed quite a lot of responsibility to them. Like, can you find the hotel? Because they're better at Google Maps than us. So that kind of thing. I mean, we absolutely loved it. And quite a few people we know have sort of done, or thinking about doing similar things now for that reason, because it's such a different type of holiday. It's adventurous without being kind of in the wilderness. So yeah, it was just such enormous fun. And I did say at the time to them, if you want, you don't have to stick with us to stay the whole time. If you want to go somewhere else, you want to go and eat somewhere else. But most of the time we did stick together, and it was very bonding.
I was just going to say that, actually. You took the words out of my mouth. This type of travel crosses. Now, I don't know where that gray area is and where it crosses over, but it's an adventure as opposed to just a vacation or a holiday. And it's not hardcore adventure, but there's just something magical that happens, that something becomes an adventure, and it becomes, by the end, you feel like it's your lifestyle.
Yes. Yeah. And we just had some real laughs along the way. Like when we were in Delft, there was a fire alarm at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we were up, and the whole thing was a bit of a disaster because they couldn't get hold of the manager of the hotel to turn it off. And there was this massive alarm that was going on really loudly. And and then the fire brigade arrived, and it was just looking back, obviously at the time it's like, it's the middle of the night, but it was funny. And we do talk about sort of looking back about things like that. And as you say, when things go wrong, like in Munich, the really long delay, you look back and you just sort of laugh about it. So I think from that point of view, because you're going away in Europe on the trains, things are not going to always go 100% to plan. It's inevitable that things will go wrong. But that does add to the fun, really, sort of coping with the unexpected as a family.
Everyone listening should be warned. It can be addictive.
Yeah. Yes. basically started planning our next trip before the end of before we'd finished. So we did go again last year. It was a slightly shorter version last year because we couldn't quite justify 3 weeks of work. But we did sort of mainly Germany and Austria last year and ended up in Antwerp as well. So, which was somewhere my husband Adrian had always wanted to go, partly for the station, because everyone says that Antwerp station is the most beautiful, is one of the most beautiful in the world, and it is amazing. And I love that is one of the great things about Interrailing is some of the stations are works of art themselves. And you have to stop because, you're usually getting off a train, you're trying to work out where to go and everything. And sometimes you make yourself stop and look at the architecture, like Budapest Coletti is amazing. So that, again, that is part of the fun. And one of the joys of Interrailing also is that you arrive so centrally. The station is usually bang in the city, in the centre of town. It's always got good transport links. You can get a bus or a tube or whatever out of it. So, and that's such different from, isn't it, from an airport? When you arrive and you've got to get a taxi or a long bus ride or whatever, you're just there when you're Interrailing.
Oh, it's so exciting that like pulling in slowly and detraining with your luggage and looking around like, all right, we're here. Let's do it. On that second trip, where'd you go and what were some of your highlights there?
I think we had a big discussion about, do we want to do something similar and avoid sort of big cities? My sons are very keen to go to Vienna. So we said, okay, let's have Vienna as our ultimate trip. And my husband and I had been there like 20 odd years ago and hadn't been that overwhelmed with it, but they were keen. So we said, okay, let's go to Vienna. And I loved it this time round. Again, it was boiling hot, so we kind of had to sort of scale down what we did. We spent sort of a lovely morning in the Prater amusement park, a theme park where they've got the wheel from the 30s,
yes.
And that kind of thing. And Adrian and I did a gallery. The kids went off to a different museum. And then what I really enjoyed about Vienna was, as I said, it was scorching hot. And on the last day, we just sort of slightly thought, we've done enough sightseeing. And we sort of Googled a bit, found out what the locals do when it's hot. And there was this sort of complex where there's sort of a lake and a swimming pool and changing rooms and cafes and that sort of thing. So we just went and chilled out there for an afternoon, and that was lovely. Just chilled out with what the locals were doing. Really, really enjoyed that. We got chatting to someone, got a restaurant recommendation from one of the locals and that kind of thing. So we did really enjoy Vienna. We also went to Nuremberg, which was lovely, sort of cobbled streets, massive great hill. We stayed at the youth hostel there at the top of this massive hill in a heat wave. That was a bit punishing. But we did make a rookie Interrailing error that actually I wrote about in the book. Don't do this. And we did this, which was like, if there's somewhere you really want to go and you're only like, we were in Nuremberg for 2 nights. So we sort of arrived, I think, late afternoon, I can't remember exactly, and then had 1 full day there. And we really wanted to go to the Nuremberg Trials Museum. We were there on a Tuesday. It closed on a Tuesday. So that was the real disappointment. So yeah, that's a tip that I do. Make sure if you want to go somewhere and you only have a full day, if you want to do something, that thing is open.
One thing I did really enjoy about the book too is these little things that came up that, about rail travel that I was like, oh yeah, it happens to us all the time too. About like, you bought snacks in Belgium and then you're finishing them off 3 countries over.
That's right. Well, we bought chocolate, obviously, in Belgium. We bought chocolate marzipan and we forgot about it. So we had it little Tupperware, and I think it was partly because we didn't really unpack at all for about a week. We didn't unpack till we got to Budapest because we were sort of 2 or 3 nights in most places and we didn't bother. And then there was just this moment where we were like, oh yeah, look, we've got this whole load of chocolate marzipan, and luckily it hadn't melted. So that is funny, but it seems like, here we were in this. It was so different from Belgium. It feels like you can't believe it was the same trip last week because everything has changed so much. So it felt a bit odd to be eating Belgian chocolate in Budapest.
No, I think that's another great element of Interrailing, Eurailing too, is that you get so much in that you're like, I can't believe that was just 4 days ago that we were 3 countries away.
It's just the excitement of what are you going to see out the window? Who are you going to chat to? You're going somewhere completely new, and it's just. I've already gone off aeroplanes, the whole hassle of getting through customs and being there hours beforehand, as I say, arriving like an hour away from where you need to be by taxi and all that sort of thing. And rail travel is just so much more relaxed. Like, if you miss your plane, it's a disaster. You miss your train. Oh, well, there'll be another one in an hour. So, or we can get there a different way. And that is one of the joys of it, I think.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your adventure. And anybody who wants to take a little bit of a vicarious ride, pick this up. Crowded platforms and window seats. How can people grab the book if they want?
But it's Amazon that you can get it as an ebook or as a paperback. So yeah, it's on there.
Around the world?
Yeah, it's available. I believe you can get it from just about anywhere. If not, let me know. I will see if I can do it. But yeah, you can get it from there. So I hope people enjoy it because it's. I wrote it really because I just wanted to share the experience of what it's like. And I hope I've sort of, several of my friends have said this book made me want to go interrailing again, which is, I kind of think, job done, because I kind of think it's great to inspire people to do something that they might not have thought of doing, because it's, as I say, it's not really on people's radar, really, interrailing in everybody's radar. So I hope it is now.
Well, you don't have to convince me. Thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to following your adventures and seeing what you get up to next.
Thanks, Scott.